Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Creating Tailwinds podcast by Flight Path Financial with your hosts, John Urbick and Jared Adams. Join us today as we discuss the power of infinite banking. And here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to podcast number 22 of Flight Path Financial's Creating Tailwinds. I'm here with Jared Adams today, and we've got a very special podcast for you with our guest, Dr. Peter McCullough, who is going to talk to us about the mRNA and the spike protein, and a lot of information that I never knew about. His book, Vaccines, Mythology, Ideology, and Reality with John Leake. He will talk about that with us during our session with Dr. McCullough. So with that, Jared, let's press on. This is John Urbick with Flight Path Financial, Creating Tailwinds, and we have a very special guest with us today, Dr. Peter McCullough, the preeminent authority on the mRNA vaccine. It would take me a long time to list all his credentials. You can look them up for yourself, but if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be more than happy to provide you.
Well, John, thank you so much for having me on the show. I can't believe I finally made it on Flight Path Financial. Let me tell you what, I was wondering if I was ever going to get the call. I finally link up, after I set all the records on Joe Rogan back in 2021. And even to this day, Elon Musk and Trump, they just can't catch Dr. McCullough in terms of the views.
What we do at Flight Path Financial is infinite banking. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, clients have to go through underwriting with the insurance company to do what we do, because we overfund life insurance contracts and we use them as a bank. And I've had two clients turned down because of what seemed to be COVID-related vaccine damages, but I don't know. There's no way to prove it. I've been following Dr. McCullough for quite some time now. He's been instrumental in my understanding what's going on. And so, Dr. McCullough, I thought I would just turn this over to you to talk about your work, where we're at today. We've had all this controversy over the COVID vaccine and damage that has been done to it. And I don't want to get into all that history, but for going forward, for pilots, those that have had the vaccine boosters, 1, 2, 3, 4 boosters, what does that do? The spike protein, is it damaging? And if so, what should a guy like me do? We're not medically trained. All we're hearing is all this stuff on the internet. You pop something into Google and you get conflicting information, and it's not real helpful. So speaking to a larger body of people who are concerned about, hey, this spike protein, what is it? Is it the same as the flu, as the next, or is it specific to COVID? Is it dangerous to me? If it's in my body, does it matter if I don't respond and do something about it? Or need I respond and try to get this out of my system?
Well, let me tell you, I'm an internist and cardiologist in Dallas, Texas. I'm a research epidemiologist. In the last 6 years now, I've really turned my attention to this infectious disease pandemic, SARS Covid2, or the COVID-19 virus. Sadly, our House Select Subcommittee investigations and all the U.S. intelligence agencies agree the virus was intentionally engineered in the Wuhan Institute of Virology, the biosecurity Annex 4. So about 97% of us have had the infection, and this is kind of spooky, John, but we've been infected with a virus that in many ways was man-made or manipulated. It's not a natural virus. I think people felt that when they got the illness, things weren't the same. So I don't know if people in your circles report that, but it was very different for me as a doctor. I've seen endless numbers of influenza and rhinovirus and paramyxovirus and all kinds of viral infections. I've never seen a viral infection that causes blood clotting. Blood clotting. Today, I had a young man. He didn't take the vaccines. He just had COVID and developed the most horrific blood clot in his arm. It had to remove his rib and dig the blood clot out. His arms, he was on blood thinners for a very long time, and the blood flow is still not normal. He's 23 years old, John.
Is that from the COVID vaccine specific, or could it be from something else?
He didn't take the vaccine.
Oh, that's just from the exposure.
It's just the virus. Now, the virus is a
Wow.
ball, and the virus has little spikes on the surface, these little spikes. That's called the spike protein. And the spike protein, again, was engineered in this Chinese biosecurity lab. All the US intelligence agencies now agree
Hmm.
that spike protein gets into the human body in the natural infection. It's just a tip of it, but it's vicious in terms of causing blood clots, like it caused in this young man. He said, Dr. McCullough, I didn't take the shots. I just got COVID, and this blood clot in my arm is largely ruined his life. He was trying to train as a paramedic, and he needs to use his hands and his shoulders, and he's had tremendous impairment of blood flow in the arm. That's just the infection.
My goodness.
So about 97% of us have had the infection. Now, the vaccines, and we're largely talking about Pfizer, Moderna, which was 94% of everybody who took a vaccine in the United States, they're the genetic code for this spike protein. So they're genetic code. And so now the body takes the genetic code and it produces even more spike protein, way more than just the infection. And the spike protein does the same things as the infection. It damages organs, it causes blood clots. And once the vaccines are injected, we have no way of shutting them off because they're brand new synthetic genetic vaccines. There's no ability to shut it off. The body doesn't have any ability to break them down and clear them out. I think that's what's landed us in the predicament that we're in.
Is there a difference between the spike protein from getting the disease, the virus organically versus the vaccine?
Yeah, when you get the virus organically, if this is the spike protein, you're just getting the tip of it, just the tip with the infection. When you get the vaccine, you're getting the full length spike protein. The full thing is produced. In fact, it's held open. Pfizer and Moderna put in two proline insertions, and it's held open, the pre-fusion conformation, and the vaccine spike protein is in the bloodstream. In one of my research patients, we found it in the bloodstream 3.2 years after he took the shots.
Hmm. What is the prognosis for the society in general who have this stuff floating around their system? What kind of a negative response can we expect from all these people who, might have the spike protein floating around their system?
But let me tell you, in the United States, 81% of Americans, according to USA Facts, which relies on the CDC tabular data, 81% of Americans have taken one or more shots. So right then and there, that's 81%. 19% took no vaccines. Now 70% became fully vaccinated. Initially, they took two shots. And then the numbers after that really fall off. I think people, learned that the vaccines were having problems. Now, the spike protein in study from Germany, from Yale, and now the study here in Dallas, I'll show it's very long lasting in the bloodstream because the human body isn't getting it down. We found the bloodstream in the lining of blood vessels. It's found in the brain. It's for sure found in the heart. It's been found in semen and ejaculate and body fluids. Almost everywhere we look for the spike protein, we can find it. Now, the spike protein, because it's not natural, it's there, it's actually causing inflammation and a reaction to it. The body's trying to get rid of it, but it's struggling to get rid of it, and it creates more and more inflammation. The spike protein, because our body is trying to target it with antibodies, produces what's called autoantibodies. So now we start to actually target other things in the body, like targeting the nucleus of the cell. That's called the ANA, or the anti-nuclear antibody. So the spike protein incites autoimmunity, and now the body starts to attacking itself. So when you say about, social media and nobody knows what's what, I give large public programs. I've given public programs with 5,000 people in the audience, and I ask for a show of hands. I said, how many of you know somebody in your circle who's been injured, disabled, or sadly died after the COVID-19 vaccine? And consistently, about 85% of people raise their hands. Yeah. So you know what?
Yeah.
People know. You don't have to worry about confusion on the internet. People know just from talking to their neighbors.
But you know, they've made a big name of this word misinformation. It drives me crazy. They come up with these words where they're taking something, they're doing it, and they're projecting it onto somebody else. It's so popular in politics today, and it's so distorting. And I just, where does the common man, the common woman go for solid information? I direct them to your webpage. But I mean, what do? You find out, okay, I've had 2 shots, I've had 3 shots. How do I find out if I have this spike protein? And then if you do have it, what's the course of action? What should they do?
Well, let's start with misinformation. Sadly, that word appeared in the English literature about 1500. It started to be used periodically in the 19th century, and boy, did it hit in the 20th century. So misinformation became a central propaganda tactic for Goebbels, who ran the office of propaganda for Hitler. Yeah. And then Stalin in post-World War II Europe actually used a related term, disinformation. Mm-hmm. And what it's used is it's a weapon to be used against enemies. So when someone wants to hurt somebody, they try to gain leverage over them by accusing them of spreading misinformation. So it means that one person who's making the allegation, that they hold information and the other person holds misinformation. So anybody who uses that term is propagandizing. And recently I testified in the U.S. Senate, and I caught the ranking member, Richard Blumenthal, who's an attorney, using that word, and I called him out on it. I said, wonderful. I never want to see a public servant use that word ever against one of the citizens. He was using it against me. So misinformation, anybody using that word immediately think that they are not telling you the truth because they're using that word to try to fool you. You'll see that being used by leaders in Washington. You'll see it used in the media. I never use it. You'll never hear me use the word misinformation. So where do we go to find truth? I mean, people have, misinformation, by the way, is all over the CDC website. The CDC is no longer a trustable source of information. Mm-hmm. I think people now are doing their own independent research. I started Focal Points, which is the leading Substack. So if you go to Substack, search for Focal Points, you can sign up, get a free email every morning, 4 to 5 a.m. And I'm just citing the literature. Right. I'm absolutely citing the literature. Exactly what we know. I worked on one that's going to come out in a few days on Alzheimer's disease and the genetics on Alzheimer's disease. It's not misinformation. It's right. Exactly what's been found in the best scientific studies. So we have to look towards people who are very expert. So we need doctors who have published, hundreds and hundreds of papers in the peer-reviewed literature, who are known not to be wrong, right? So during the pandemic, I never came out and told the public that they should wear masks. Never. I was asked many times, and I used to go on Fox News. I told Laura Ingraham, I think we're being distracted by that.
Again, in the airports now, some people are wearing them again.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, the people who kind of made the right calls. So in my new book, Vaccines, Mythology, Ideology, and Reality, this made the New York Times bestseller list. On the back is all the comments. Well, the one by Joe Rogan at the bottom said, Dr. Peter McCullough was right all along.
I just got my book. It just came in, Doctor. It just rolled in. I was just starting to read it before this.
Yeah. Well, John Leake is a gifted author. He's the first author, and he's already considered probably the world's greatest historian. But he knows that history needs to be told with a story, and the characters have to be developed, and there has to be a middle, a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it's got to lead you to this. It can't tell you what the world is about, that you have to read this and understand it so you come to your own conclusions. And boy, does he hit it on this one. No doubt it's been on the New York Times bestseller. It's going to be up there again.
I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, it's really, really good. It's probably worth about 3 credit hours at graduate school because it's very good on the history. It's meticulously cited, hundreds of references. But the point we make in the book is that, the inquiry and the scientific method around vaccines has become corrupted. And it was corrupted very early on because there was tremendous fear of infectious diseases, bold claims made by vaccine developers, without even knowing what caused diseases. They were making these really bold claims, money and power every time. And you put all those together, let me tell you what, things are going to get off track. And so I've challenged my French colleagues to read that carefully. And we went through all the memoirs of Louis Pasteur. And I asked him, you tell me who's more arrogant, Louis Pasteur or Anthony Fauci?
Well, I did some research over this past week, and I was surprised at the number. Just pick one. Some of the regulatory bodies that you'd be very familiar with, and who their leadership is, and what their relationships are to the CDC. I don't know if you want me to cite that, but I can share it later if you like. But boy, oh boy, the interrelationships between government regulatory agencies and some of these other companies. I don't think there should be any kind of honorarium or compensation of any sort between these people, and there are that I just discovered in my research. So,
well, I mean, the question comes up, should there be donors to the CDC Foundation? And should the CDC be influenced by those donors? I mean, having a foundation. Listen, the CDC is richly funded, 6,600 employees, multi-billion-dollar budget. And, the CDC has got some big donors, including, the Gates Foundation. Yeah. And the Gates Foundation is a known vaccine development organization. And, the Gates Foundation with the World Economic Forum, they founded the CEPI, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness and Innovation, in 2017. That is a dedicated vaccine incubator. The Gates Foundation was a prominent investor in BioNTech before they got the contract for the COVID-19 vaccines with Pfizer. So, obviously working on inside information. So there's great concern that that at a very high level, these public health agencies are corrupted by outside influences. And probably the most egregious is Weber Shandwick. Did you hear about Weber Shandwick?
No. I'll have to look them up.
This is astounding. Weber Shandwick is part of the IPG group. They're basically the world's largest public promotion agency out there, marketing agency. And Weber Shandwick uniquely had the contracts for both the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. Now, this is astounding. So what does Weber Shandwick do? They actually open up an office right in the CDC vaccine center in Atlanta, Georgia. And they're right next to the CDC officers, lobbying them and marketing them to push preferentially Pfizer, Moderna vaccines.
Incredible.
And so Senator Rand Paul finds out about this. He writes CDC Director Rochelle Lewinsky and says, listen, you can't have companies have their advertising agency right in the CDC to continually lobby you with information. And it's like, no wonder all we heard about is Moderna and Pfizer vaccines. We never heard about Janssen, very little about Janssen, and almost nothing on Novavax. Novavax is the only non-genetic vaccine that was offered to Americans. You never see advertisements for that. You never see the CDC discussing Novavax.
Did we have a solution before the launch of all those mRNA vaccines that was available to American medicine that would have handled this much more efficaciously?
Well, for sure, we had.
Did we know about it? We understood it.
Yeah, we had some wonderful interventions. And, sadly, you talked about misinformation. The Federal Trade Commission in 2019 and early 2020 initiated a COVID misinformation policy from the Federal Trade Commission, and then promptly they sued virtually every company making a nasal spray. So it turns out the nasal sprays were the big stars of the pandemic, whether it's saline or
Just,
iodine-based or xylitol, simple nasal spray,
uh,
couple squirts up the nose, sniff it back, spit it out, then gargle with a similar solution twice a day, clearly prevented SARS-CoV2 infection and
wow.
prevented transmission in convincing randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trials. And there were dozens of them. And the companies were sued if they put their trial results on their websites. And I know this personally because the company that did, I think, the best studies, or the compound that was studied the best, was xylitol, and that was the Clear Corporation. Federal Trade Commission sued the Clear Corporation and sued personally the CEO, Nate Jones, and they kept them tied up in court for like 4 years just for putting their scientific studies on their website.
So this was about the money at this point then.
Well, this was early on, but I can tell you the Federal Trade Commission, they also sued Eric Naputi, who was leading a biopharmaceutical company just making vitamin D. And it turned out every study with vitamin D was positive, every study. And it's essentially harmless. The nasal sprays were for sure harmless.
Mm.
And yet our government agencies worked to sue these companies, sue people individually to basically deter any promotion of simple over-the-counter strategies. So to summarize, there were nasal sprays and gargles, vitamin D, vitamin C, quercetin, aspirin because of the blood clotting potential of the virus, an over-the-counter product called famotidine, which needed to be used at high doses. University of Virginia study, huge study, showed that that was a good idea. So we had many over-the-counter things that we could do. Then we got into over-the-counter or prescription generic drugs. Initially 2020, hydroxychloroquine, that's where we had the data. 2021, it was ivermectin. Then beyond that, in 2023 and beyond, we had Paxlovid and molnupiravir. But for 2 years, the big horses were hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. We didn't have anything else. And then we always added antibiotics, azithromycin and doxycycline. Studies show that some people died of COVID. They didn't die of the virus. They died because they had an untreated bacterial superinfection. So antibiotics were important. Steroids were critical. Multiple studies showed an inhaled generic steroid called budesonide dramatically reduced hospitalization and death. Oral steroids, hospital used dexamethasone, outpatient we used prednisone. And then lastly, blood thinners. We used a whole variety of blood thinners, heparins and warfarin and the novel anticoagulants. A critical drug that kind of in that interface with inflammation was colchicine. Colchicine, probably the best done clinical trial was cold corona in acute COVID. And to this day, we use colchicine extensively in the long COVID syndromes. So the point is, it was all about early treatment. We even had high-tech monoclonal antibodies we could give. They were available in November of 2020. So all of COVID was all about early treatment. It was clear if we waited for somebody to get so sick to be hospitalized, it was really too late for treatment.
I honestly remember you saying this. I remember listening to your voice saying how critical it was from the beginning. Get right on it. Get right on the ivermectin. I remember you talking about that. And I won't talk about personal experiences, but I know that stuff works. Um,
Well,
but
you know it firsthand, and I can tell you as a doctor, I was the first to publish the McCullough protocol, the most widely used early treatment protocol in the world. McCullough protocol has been credited with saving tens of millions of lives, sparing hundreds of millions of hospitalizations. Very, very impactful. It was the base for the Association of American Physician and Surgeons Home Treatment Guide. I mean, it was the standard, well ahead of what the government guidelines were telling us to do. I used all the drugs. I used them all. And I can tell you as a doctor, the most effective drug was ivermectin. No doubt about it. The only issues we had early on was the dose. We were going too low of a dose. We even tried every other day. We just took us a while to formulate. A man your size would probably be, 48 milligrams. Some men, 60 milligrams. And, we would go from a McCullough protocol for acute treatment. We would go 5 days minimum, sometimes out to 30 days.
yeah.
And in 2020, all we had was hydroxychloroquine originally. My dad was in a nursing home. He got COVID-19, rehab center, pelvic fracture, dementia, just really, really high risk to die of COVID. And he got one of the earliest versions of McCullough protocol, which was with hydroxychloroquine. But the point is, it was hydroxychloroquine for 30 days. Remember, even former President Trump was getting hydroxychloroquine. Then he got ivermectin and other drugs in the hospital and steroids. So President Trump got McCullough protocol. So did Joe Rogan and Aaron Rodgers. It was the principles of multifaceted, multi-drug treatment. It's critical.
Doctor, do you see the threat of the COVID vaccine being more of a threat or less of a threat than the fallout from what we've just been through, the spike protein going forward? In other words, from where we're at in this point in history, should we be more concerned as a society about dealing with the spike protein in our systems or a recurrence of COVID and some other mutation?
Well, we have to worry about both. I mean, that's the
Okay.
hard thing. So
Okay.
97% of us have had COVID, and 89% of us have taken a vaccine. So we've had multiple doses of the spike protein. As we sit here today, after things have calmed down, the 19% unvaccinated, they look the best in every single study. They have lowest rates of recurrent infection, obviously can't have any vaccine complications. But the critical way to shape up or assess risk is to measure the antibodies against the spike protein. So the spike protein, if it's in our body and it's in our bloodstream, it's going to stimulate antibody production. And if it's stimulating it for years, that tells you the spike protein is in the body. And so LabCorp, one of the most frequently used labs in the United States, has come out now with a direct-to-order test. So people can just find their own spike protein antibody levels and go on to labcorp.com, go over to Labs on Demand, go to infectious diseases, and then click COVID antibody test. $69, very affordable. Go in, pay for it online, go in and get the test and get the results. Here's the interpretive framework. If the antibody level is less than 1,000, free and clear. Every study ever published on this, my clinical experience tells me the spike protein is long gone. That's just some residual antibodies in the system. The patient's going to be fine. If you get to 5,000, that's where we start seeing spike protein in the blood. And once we get to 10, 15, 25,000, watch out. That's where we see heart damage, blood clots, persistent symptoms. I just saw a young man who came up from Austin, and he has early heart failure. That's occurred now several years after the vaccines, and he just sent me his result, over 25,000 on the antibodies.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's say somebody's got a 25,000 number. And they don't do anything about this. What's the potential threat for them?
Well, it implies the spike protein is there in the body. And I think if they're long enough, I think there's going to be a problem. A heart attack, heart damage, heart failure, a stroke. There's a recent paper by Ota and colleagues of people who had hemorrhage into the brain, and they got biopsies and autopsies of the blood vessels in the brain, and it was loaded with spike protein, loaded. So I don't think we can let the spike protein just stay in the body forever. It's going to cause problems. The blood clots, when they're pulled out, they're loaded with spike protein, as an example. It's just something, there's a few diseases that install proteins in our body, and they cause problems. A good example is Lyme disease. Lyme disease, if you get it, the organism's called Borrelia burgdorferi. It can install itself in the body. The bug is dead, but you have residual parts of it in the body, and it causes inflammation. It's called chronic Lyme disease. The same thing is with syphilis. Syphilis, even though it's killed by penicillin, it leaves residual parts of the syphilis organism in the body. It causes inflammation and problems in the aorta and the brain. And so, listen, we don't want these abnormal proteins in our body. And so that's the reason why we work so hard to create McCullough protocol base spike protein detoxification, the first approach to actually clear spike out of the body.
So with the spike protein infections that are out there in the general population, would you say the lion's share of those infections came from COVID and the COVID vaccine, not from other sources? Even though you can get it from other sources, would it be a fair assessment to say that?
Well, as we sit here today, obviously in 2020, it was all just due to the infection because we didn't have vaccines, right? It was a more severe disease. As we sit here today, there's a paper from Germany published by an author, Diexner and colleagues, that has found that indeed about 70% of people with spike protein problems is because of the vaccines. The vaccine is the major source of the spike protein.
My goodness. So they've nailed that down. They've nailed that down. Okay. Well, so if somebody goes and they pay for the $69 test, they come up and they're 10,000, 15, 25,000 number. Uh, there's there's another number, a marker. Do they need to be concerned about that ANA number? Should they be tested on that as well, or can they do it independent of that and that's enough?
No, I think there's a kind of a panel of tests that we need to do to ascertain, has the spike protein caused any problems? So I always ask patients, have they had some routine blood tests just to check for kidney and liver function, blood chemistry, CBC? Most people have that. Thyroid, critical to check for thyroid. But if someone's taken the vaccine, I want to know the autoimmune blood test, the ANA, and then its subfractions, the rheumatoid factor, and the anti-citrulated peptide. I look for any subtle heart damage with a blood high sensitivity troponin and blood BNP, and a test called galectin-3. And then I also do a measure of subtle micro blood clotting, and it's called the D-dimer test. And I think all those together allow me to assess, is the spike protein causing a problem in this body or is it not? And what else do we need to do besides the detoxification protocol?
Could you have a high spike protein number absent of those other things? Or is it unlikely?
No, it's certainly possible. I mean,
Oh, it
there's
is.
some people who have a high spike protein level, and we really can't find anything wrong with them. And we're still worried. We think the spike
Yeah.
protein is the body, and it's still stimulating antibodies. But they're fortunate. They're fortunate. When the vaccine vials have been examined, there's a website you can go to, howbadismybatch.com, and you can enter in your lot number from your vaccine card. You'll see that, for instance, Pfizer, there's about 4,500 lots or batches of vaccines that were produced. About 25% of them, there's been at least one death in that lot. 25% of them. 75% of them, there's been no deaths reported. So, I mean, there never should be a death after a vaccine. Never, because you take a vaccine in order to be protected. No one should die with a vaccine. But 25% of all the lots with deaths, I mean, that's a huge number of deaths that have occurred. And in the United States, our CDC is reporting to us we're at 19,460 people who've died after the COVID vaccine. That's a huge, that's as much as a small town in the United States who've died after the COVID vaccine. A couple thousand of them died right in the vaccine center the next day. So it's relatively immediately. And that's the reason why, even as we're having this conversation now, there are hearings on Capitol Hill. There's another Senate hearing today about the COVID-19 vaccine disaster to get this information out there. Fortunately, no one's taking these shots anymore. In fact, some of the pharmacies are just going to stop even offering them. So,
Oh, good. So what should someone do if they're concerned? They hear your discussion on this and they find out we have this test and they come up 20,000 on that number and they come up positive for ANA. What steps should they take? They should maybe they talk to their physician, and their physician may or may not, be alarmed by that. I don't know. But if they're concerned, what steps can they take to aggressively deal with this if they want to?
The most proven approach to deal with the spike protein is called McCullough protocol-based spike protein detoxification. You'll find that all over the internet. And the most widely used product is by the Wellness Company. Now, I'm the chief scientific officer of the Wellness Company, and it's called the Ultimate Spike Detox. So look for the Ultimate Spike Detox. It's got a gold label on it. The average person will take 2 capsules twice a day on an empty stomach for about a year. Now, somebody really high in the antibodies, I just had a patient today, over 25,000. I told him 4 capsules twice a day on an empty stomach. 4 capsules. So we got to really go on high dose detox for about a year, and reliably the antibodies will come down because the spike is being cleared from the body. We've seen that in thousands of cases. It's in the reported peer-reviewed literature. Very, very important. Now, if the blood ANA is positive and now there's autoimmunity, Some doctors will do nothing with that. I tend to be aggressive because I worry about it getting worse. If there's more and more autoimmunity, then syndromes like systemic lupus or mixed connective tissue disease or scleroderma can start. And once these autoimmune syndromes start, they're almost impossible to stop. Some of these are very debilitating. So clinically, I like to shut down that autoimmune process. And our go-to drug there is hydroxychloroquine. Hydroxychloroquine is critical to shutting down the autoimmune process. Now, if we are able to get the spike protein down rapidly, then a lot of times that ANA will turn negative. But once an ANA is positive, we do want to follow it up in 6 or 12 months. And then the elevation in the ANA is important. So it goes by titers. 1 to 40 is not much of an elevation. 1 to 80, a bit concerning. 1 to 160, I think, very concerning.
Is there a downside at all to any of this protocol? If you have to load up on it, any part of it, is there anything you need to be aware of out there to monitor?
Well, with respect to the base spike detoxification, which is a combination of nattokinase, curcumin, and bromelain, and some minor ingredients, the biggest risk there is bleeding. So this is a supplement used at high dose. If there was bleeding, like easy bruising, bleeding from brushing the teeth and nosebleeds, the dose has to be reduced. With hydroxychloroquine, it's a very safe drug. We've used it at rheumatoid arthritis and systemic lupus for a very long time. There's a few caveats. If there is a known prolonged timing interval on the EKG, the QT interval, we keep a watch on that. And then some African Americans have an enzymatic deficiency called G6PD deficiency that where hydroxychloroquine could cause a problem. So with ivermectin, which is another, it's used not only in the McCullough protocol for early treatment, but it's used for patients who may have recurrent infection. Ivermectin is a very safe drug. It's really safer than Tylenol. So in fact, we can use these drugs together with the spike detoxification.
If somebody wants to pursue this and get further information from your organization, where should they go? What should they go to? Your website? What's from whatever state they're in? How do they get more information for their specific needs through your organization?
The most accessible way to all of this is go to the wellness company,
Okay.
twc.health/courage, twc.health/courage. And check out the information. We've got a very comprehensive guide for the spike protein with all the concepts we've put out there. We have telemedicine available to get people additional medicines if needed, to get the blood tests. And we certainly have the leading product, the ultimate spike detox for detoxification. And we have a lighter grade product called Spike Support for people who just have been exposed and they just want to do something healthy. Now, let me say that the nattokinase, bromelain, and curcumin, and the other mighty ingredients like dandelion extract and black sativa, they're very healthy supplements. Personally, I'm on them. Now, I also have atherosclerosis. I have some blockages of some arteries, and nattokinase is used by the Japanese to lessen arterial blockages in the carotid arteries and coronaries. So, I have no side effects on it whatsoever. It's a healthy supplement. I feel way better on this now that my spike levels are down. So I'm just going to stay on it.
I am going to join you on those protocols too, because I think I have yet to find something that made so much sense as what you've put out there, sir. And Dr. McCullough, you've just been so generous with your time. I know you have important meetings ahead, and I'm just thoroughly grateful that you were so kind with your time and you shared it. And I'm going to do my very best to sing the gospel of Dr. McCullough and get people to lock into your research and the work you've done, because I think it's just a remarkable a gift to all of us. And I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for your work.
Well, thank you so much. And let me just emphasize, everybody's been exposed to this just about, and you can do this on your own now. It's patients are concerned. You don't necessarily need a doctor. You can get your own spike antibody test. You can go to the wellness company, guide yourself on this. We've come up with other products, what's called the long COVID bundle. So we not only have the ultimate spike detox, but we also have elevated energy for people who have fatigue. Mind Lift for people with brain fog, and then the Healthy Heart Supplement, which most people need if there's any cardiac involvement. So what we try to do is we said this is such a big problem. We can't wait on the doctor here. People wait, sadly, they wait weeks or months to get appointments. They can take action now. Go to the wellness company, twc.health/courage.
Fantastic. Dr. McCullough, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you.
Thank
And
you.
I wish you tremendous success in Washington. Please keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for being there for us. I know everybody in this audience will be grateful to hear your words of wisdom and your counsel. Thank you.
What did you think
Certainly,
about
Thank you.
that?
Jared, I thought that was phenomenal. I learned a lot. There's
Yep.
so much to information out there about the COVID vaccine and spike proteins and coming and going. I don't know how to make sense of it all sometimes, but I think Dr. McCullough did an awesome job kind of laying it out. What were your
Yeah, I mean,
thoughts?
I, I really appreciated his context and the way he kind of plugged everything all together. Also, how apolitical he was. There, I kind of stepped back and throughout it, as we're going through, I'm thinking, this guy's not an infinite banking concepts practitioner. He
No.
he doesn't have any infinite banking concepts policies because this is so applicable to what you and I do every day
Yeah. Yeah.
in the infinite banking concept
Yeah.
space. And it's so practical because of the underwriting that we have to complete in order to set these policies up
And we
and
talked about
how
that.
important it is
Yeah.
to be just healthy in general. Everybody out there should try to be the healthiest version of themselves, no questions asked. But that's converted to dollars and cents when you apply for these policies.
Yeah, but I can only
Sure.
go on the words of a greater authority than I, and certainly Dr. McCullough carries a significant credentials, 34 years, I think it was, in
Sure. Yep.
internal medicine and cardiology. And gosh, if he can move the needle on some of these things where people who were previously denied a policy because of some of this apparent COVID vaccine damage,
Yep.
I don't know.
Absolutely. Yep.
But if we can get there, I am all in. I've got my vaccination record card, and he talked about this. You can go into the howbadismybatch.com is the name of the website, and all it does is it pulls data from the VARS, the Vaccine
The
Adverse
VAERS. Yep.
Reporting
That's right.
System,
Yep.
right? And I was shocked at my own as the number of incidents of things that have happened, and that I don't want to get off into the weeds on this thing, but you might be interested in taking a look at that for yourself. And if you forgot it or you want to hear about it again, you can go back and I'll mark the points in the podcast where he talks about that so people can
Yep.
go look
Yep.
at it. So my biggest takeaway was the need to look at the spike protein and see if it's in fact an issue. And there's a test you can take for $69, I think Dr. McCullough said, and move forward from there. And then as much or as little as people want to engage the subject, they can, you
That's
know.
right.
So I was quite pleased with that and very grateful to Dr. McCullough. And I'm going to plug his book that just came out, Vaccines, Methodology, Ideology, and Reality, that he did with John Leake. And if you're interested in the subject, uh, book comes highly recommended. I'm only about halfway through it because I just got it, but it's a great read.
So, one other kind of thought that came to mind that might be worth just a quick discussion on is if you are impacted by this, if this has caused you strife in your personal life,
Yes,
maybe it's seen, maybe it's not,
right,
and you still are deciding to go down the path of creating your own infinite banking concepts policy,
right.
and you run into a bump in the road. The small reminder that shows up here is one, there are other ways through underwriting that you can get around various health issues. It's
Yes,
not always a dead set blocker. And two, it doesn't always have to be your personal life that is protected. There's always an insurable interest in your
exactly.
household, in your family, of which you can still set up an infinite banking concepts policy that
Right.
is still very much structured towards a dividend paying whole life policy of which you're working with a mutually owned company. The so I use that as a small reminder, is that you may be plagued or hit by this in some way, shape, or form. It is what it is at this point. We're not demonizing any choices you've made or anybody else in your family has made. Yet there's still ways around this in the health aspects of how you can still set this up.
Yeah,
Would you agree with that?
100%. I shared with you, I had a case very recently where, and this is a note, practitioners out there, if you're listening in, I had a client recently who had COVID and got over it. And if you're a short distance away from COVID, I don't know what it is. I think it's 4 to 6 weeks. You may test very high for PSA. I guess that's a common outcome. You don't have a problem. It's a product of the disease, and it goes away. So if you know that somebody has had COVID, don't go do the medical until you put some time, 6 to 8 weeks past that. Otherwise, this might show up. It happened to me, and if it happens to you, there is an out still. There are certain companies that will do. There's one that'll do a what's called an MSP underwriting, where they take away. You can't get certain riders. You can't get a term rider, for instance, but you can get a enhanced benefit rider, which is built into the contract, and it's funded through the dividends. And so without getting into too much on the contract structure,
Yep.
the death benefit stays fixed for a period of time while it's using those funds to pay for that internal rider. That can be done, and I built one recently. It's just
Yep.
it's a bit of structural work, but it can be done. So anybody out there has a question on that, any practitioner or any clients or potential clients, feel free to give me a call. More than happy to share some of those considerations with you, or call Jared.
Completely
We'd love to
agree.
talk with you.
Yeah.
Well, Jared, it's been a full day, and I think we've covered a lot of ground. I greatly appreciate you being here. Greatly appreciate. Sorry about all the technical snafus on my part,
That's
but
all right.
but we got here. We got here. So
Made it work. Very, very awesome that we were able to interview Dr. McCullough. So cool.
all right. Well, we'll sign off till next time. Great seeing you. Have an awesome evening, and we look forward to the next one.
You got it. Talk to you soon, John. Cheers.
Take care, Jared. We'd like to thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Creating Tailwinds podcast with your hosts, John and Jared. As always, we welcome your questions and critiques. You can reach us through the Contact Us tab at flightpathfinancial.com. Remember, it's all about how you think. As Nelson Nash has said about infinite banking, give it your close attention, and it can make a radical improvement in your financial future.